Helicopters circled overhead, bullets were flying, and one of the most powerful cartel bosses in the world was about to die. A street shootout. Another betrayed by an ally, one died during surgery. They controlled billions, armies, cities, but none escaped their deaths, shocked more than lives. How do the most powerful criminals fall? Are they arrested or hunted? Do enemies kill them or allies betray them? Why do so many die in unexpected ways? Cartels are private armies and global empires. Leaders act like warlords. In Mexico and Colombia, wars rage governments. Warzone, death of Tony Tormenta. Antonio Ezequiel Guillen, known as Tony Tormenta, rose to power after his brother was arrested and quickly found himself locked in a violent war with Los Zetas. He built his own private army called Los Scorpions, made up of former police officers trained in brutal combat. For months, Mexican Marines tracked him across the region, but he always escaped surrounded by armed convoys and armored vehicles. Everything changed when the government launched a massive operation. More than 600 Marines supported by helicopters surrounded the city. Streets turned into battlefields, grenades exploded everywhere, and fear spread among civilians. By afternoon, forces located him inside a building, and during the assault, he was killed. But not all bosses died fighting armies. The fall of El Mexicano. Gonzalo Rodriguez Gacha, known as El Mexicano, had enemies everywhere, including the government, rival cartels, and former allies. His empire was collapsing and betrayal became inevitable. A secret informant revealed his location, forcing him to flee first by boat, then across the countryside in a truck, and finally on foot. Helicopters circled above as police closed in. During the desperate escape, his son fought beside him and was killed in the firefight. Wounded and cornered, Gacha fired at a helicopter, but exposed his position. Seconds later, bullets struck him, bringing his life to an end. His story showed that power could not prevent betrayal. Sometimes betrayal comes from even closer. The prison assassination of Pacho Herrera. Helmer Herrera, known as Pacho, believed surrendering to authorities would protect him from violence. He operated quietly compared to other cartel leaders, and inside prison he appeared safe. However, rumors spread that he had betrayed powerful rivals. Within the prison walls, tension quietly built. One day during a football match, a familiar face entered the field. A man he trusted approached him warmly. Herrera stopped the game to greet him, but in a sudden, shocking moment, the man pulled out a weapon and shot him multiple times in the head. The attack was swift and unexpected, revealing that even trust could be deadly, but some deaths did not involve long battles. The unexpected end of Amado Carrillo Fuentes. Amado Carrillo Fuentes, known as the Lord of the Skies, controlled a vast empire and moved drugs using a fleet of aircraft, making him one of the richest and most powerful traffickers. Facing increasing pressure from authorities, he believed changing his appearance would allow him to escape capture. He entered a private hospital to undergo plastic surgery, hoping to disappear forever. However, the operation went terribly wrong. Complications during surgery caused his death, turning a calculated escape into a fatal mistake. Soon after, rumors spread, suggesting he might have faked his death to avoid justice, adding mystery to the event. Strangely, the doctors involved were later found murdered, leaving many unanswered questions. The street encounter of Ramon Arellano Felix. Ramon Arellano Felix was feared for his ruthless actions and reputation as a violent enforcer. His name was known by authorities around the world, and he had been placed on major wanted lists. Despite this, he continued to operate openly in Mexico. His end came in an unexpected way during what appeared to be a routine traffic stop. When a police officer pulled him over, the situation escalated instantly. Ramon opened fire, striking the officer, but even as the officer fell, he returned fire, hitting Ramon fatally. Both men died in the exchange. Some accounts suggest the encounter may have been planned, possibly arranged by rivals to eliminate him, showing how danger could appear at any moment. The iconic death of Pablo Escobar. Pablo Escobar remains one of the most famous cartel bosses in history, controlling immense wealth and influence. His violent actions drew worldwide attention and placed him at the center of an intense manhunt involving governments and rival groups. After escaping from his private prison, he lived on the run, constantly moving to avoid capture. Eventually, authorities tracked a phone call he made, which revealed his location. As forces closed in, Escobar attempted to escape across rooftops alongside his bodyguard. A firefight erupted and he was struck multiple times before a final shot ended his life. Even today, debate continues over whether the fatal shot came from police or if he took his own life, ending his story in uncertainty. At first glance, it may seem surprising that men who controlled billions of dollars, commanded armies, and influenced entire regions could fall so suddenly. Yet a clear pattern begins to emerge when their stories are placed side by side. Power did not protect them. In fact, the more power they gained, the more visible they became. Their wealth attracted attention. Their violence created enemies. Their influence triggered fear among governments and rivals alike. Instead of building security, their power slowly turned into a target on their backs, making their downfall not just possible, but almost unavoidable over time. As their influence expanded, so did the intensity of the conflict surrounding them. Military raids became more frequent and more aggressive, with heavily armed forces launching operations designed specifically to eliminate these figures. At the same time, betrayals began to surface from within their own circles. Trusted allies turned into informants. Close associates chose survival over loyalty. Assassinations became common, not just as tools of control, but as desperate acts of retaliation. Each event added another layer of danger, creating an environment where survival became increasingly difficult even for the most powerful leaders in the system. There is a deeper and more uncomfortable truth hidden beneath all these events. The more powerful they became, the more enemies they created. Every decision they made, whether it involved eliminating a rival or expanding their territory, planted the seeds for future conflict. Fear may have secured obedience, but it also guaranteed resentment. Over time, this resentment grew stronger, spreading across rivals, governments, and even their own organizations. The result was a constant state of tension where danger could emerge from any direction at any moment without warning or hesitation. Beyond the battles and headlines, there was a human cost that often remained unseen. Families were targeted as part of revenge strategies. Relatives who had no direct involvement were pulled into the cycle of violence. After a cartel boss was killed, retaliation did not end. Instead, it intensified. Revenge killings followed quickly, creating waves of violence that affected entire communities. This emotional dimension added another layer of tragedy, showing that the consequences of their actions extended far beyond their own lives and deeply impacted countless others in painful and lasting ways. When all these elements are brought together, a powerful realization begins to take shape. Cartel bosses do not fall because they are weak. They fall because the system they build guarantees their downfall. Their entire structure is based on unstable foundations. Violence is used to gain control. Betrayal is used to maintain power. Fear is used to enforce loyalty. However, these same elements eventually turn against them. The system that helped them rise becomes the same system that leads to their destruction, creating a cycle that is almost impossible to escape. Within this environment, trust becomes fragile and temporary. Alliances are formed out of necessity rather than genuine loyalty. People remain close only as long as it benefits them. The moment circumstances change, those same individuals can become threats. Everyone becomes an enemy eventually. This reality creates a world where no relationship is truly secure. Even the closest allies may choose survival over loyalty when faced with pressure. In this world, loyalty is temporary, and survival often depends on making choices that ultimately contribute to the downfall of others. Looking at these events logically reveals consistent patterns that explain why these outcomes repeat so often. The first pattern is government pressure. Authorities invest heavily in military operations, surveillance systems, and intelligence networks to locate and eliminate targets. The second pattern is internal betrayal. Informants and rival factions emerge within organizations, weakening them from the inside. The third pattern involves lifestyle risks. Public appearances and ego-driven decisions increase visibility and create opportunities for enemies. The fourth pattern is the cycle of violence, where revenge killings and ongoing conflicts ensure that the threat never truly disappears. When these patterns are combined, the conclusion becomes clear. Their deaths were not accidents. They were inevitable. These men built empires worth billions, controlled resources beyond imagination, and shaped entire regions through their influence. Yet none of them built a way out. The system they relied on offered power, but provided no long-term survival. Power built on fear always collapses because it cannot create stability. When one leader falls, another quickly takes their place, continuing the cycle without interruption. In the cartel world, no one really wins because the system itself ensures that every victory is temporary and every ending is already written. If you found this story interesting, there is much more to explore beyond these events. Watch our next video on how cartels actually operate and understand the deeper systems behind their rise and fall. Because the story does not end with their deaths, it continues in ways that shape the world even today.